Thanks, everyone. Sorry about the delay. My first presentation with a Mac obviously doesn't like me. Good morning. It's good to be back. It's good to see everyone again. I was here last year as a call-up at the last minute, so this year I had a bit more time to present. So before we start, we're going to talk a little bit about enhancing the developer experience with platform engineering and self-service. So Michelle talked earlier a lot about the kind of developer experience and the time that developers actually are spent coding. So there's things that can obviously help that from an AI perspective, but there's also stuff that we can do within platform engineering that can kind of help that. So I guess before we start, again, who's a developer in the room? Okay, lots of you. Who would have more of a platform engineering infrastructure kind of background? Okay. And I guess who thinks that developers are finicky, picky, snowflake people? Oh, okay. Me as well. So, from my background, I've never written a line of code in my life. So I come from an infrastructure background. That's my foray. But in the last 3 years specifically, I've taken more of an internal role at my organization to work with the developers and essentially be their customer. So working with them to understand their challenges that they have within the organization and kind of unblocking what they do. So I don't want to stereotype developers, but in my experience and where I've been over the last 25 years in IT, generally I see two types of developers. So these are obviously ChatGPT generated images, but we have we start on the right first. If we look at the stressed developer, they're the ones that can do everything. They drinking Coke, they're always working hard, hitting deadlines, but you can see that they're obviously visibly stressed. Then you kind of look at the new age developer, people with a Mac, drinking whiskey, wearing nice clothes that would go in and submit a PR, push it into main, and their day would be gone. So I've kind of seen the gamut of people across the land. But generally, the challenges that I see are the same. So whether you are an internal developer at an organization or a consultant going into an organization, this is probably really familiar to you all. So when you look, the developers coming on board, they need to start coding and starting to work. But you'll be stifled by the 3 or 4 roles up the top there. So you've got your architecture team. Before you can actually do anything now, I want you to go and read these documents. These are all our standards, but they're changing next week as well, so keep that in mind. We've got the security or the IT ops, tinfoil hat. This is the things that you need to kind of grow by and do. Read this documentation again, and we'll set you up with an environment. And then your DevOps teams, we're very busy. We can set you up with a basic pipeline, but organize another meeting if you want anything else done. So, as a developer, you have challenges, you have deadlines, so you need to start working straight away. But there's a lot of hoops and things that you need to kind of go through. And again, this is, when you look at traditional IT, it's very centralized. There's lots of bottlenecks within the organization and business that kind of stop this from happening. And there's a key reliance on individuals as well. And then when you look at legacy policies that align to kind of ITIL frameworks and traditional IT functions, again, that becomes a lot more challenging. And then when you look at, this diagram may be a bit hard to see, but the onboarding experience as well, right? So you'd go through, you'd understand, go to IT, you'd get a laptop, you raise a ticket, you get some access. So you kind of go through this whole winded process to actually start doing things. And that's on project 1. And then when you're working on other projects and other things within the organization, there's a similar type of thing that would happen as well. So it can be quite challenging, and I can see why developers have a hard time getting anything done. So as an infrastructure person, again, as I said, I fought with a lot of developers over time and thought that they were the problem. But then when you kind of peel it back and understand, when you are a developer today, what are the types of things that you are expected to do? So if you look on the left there around the kind of Lego meme, front end, back end, security, data, infrastructure, I don't know very many people that are experts in all of those different domains. So the cognitive load on a developer is quite high. And then you're expected to obviously operate and run those things as well. So it requires a lot of domain knowledge and understanding of what you're doing. So as Michelle said before, you only spend probably 4 hours a week actually coding. So you're sitting in meetings, you're spending a lot of time getting onboarded and understand what needs to be done. So then how do we fix that? So platform engineering is a relatively new kind of concept and term. Over the last 3 or 4 years, it's gained a lot of momentum, but it's really working with an organization to kind of understand the challenges and move from a kind of a reactive mindset to more of a proactive one. So a lot of traditional infrastructure teams are very reactive. Ticket comes in, do this, move on, goes out the other side. So how do you go from being reactive to proactive and providing a lot of those kind of capabilities that they need to accelerate what they're doing? Reduces cognitive load, faster time for feedback, reduces that burden on the internal IT teams and makes it a lot easier to kind of get through. And this comes from the concept on the left. So obviously enforcement and control, typical on-prem networking, was the kind of security boundary that was in place. So with cloud and a lot of the new age technologies that we have, it's more about enablement and support and self-service rather than the controlled, centralized work that was in before. And a key thing for this, so understanding platform engineering principles. So I won't go through all of these here, but the 3 key ones that are important. So establish platform engineering function. So what are the things that we need to have in place, and how do we move from kind of a project-based delivery model to a product-based one, and making that available via self-service kind of platforms. Deployment environments as a service. So when you think of a lot of the solutions that you build, you'd have your dev test, your different environments across the board. But how do you then create these kind of ephemeral environments on demand without having to bother the central infrastructure or the platform teams? So they need to be made available through some portal that you can consume on behalf of the identity that's doing the work. And lastly, again, optimizing that self-service experience. So being able to do that under the guardrails and the security controls that the organization dictates. So we obviously want to make sure that we're following good security practices and good governance, but also that agility and giving the team what they need to be able to do things. All right, so now we go back to this diagram again. So before, kind of got those challenges. So now you have the platform engineering function that sits between the business and the developer. So they understand the problems, working through the backlog. So they've gone, okay, now we've codified a lot of these templates and solutions that you need, and they've made them available through this self-service portal. So they can go in and consume reusable infrastructure as code templates, tool sets, artifacts, documentations. So that premise of self-service and being able to have them kind of fend for themselves with minimal interaction is obviously important and something that's taking a lot of burden away from their role. Another part of it is the IDP, so the internal developer platform or portal, depending on which way you see it. So when you look from the bottom up, we've got infrastructure, storage, network, compute. A lot of that is kind of abstracted away from those middle layers. So when you think of platform capabilities, providing that infrastructure, observability, key management, secrets, identity and access management. So a lot of those concepts that, as you saw before, were traditionally in the realms of the developer that they needed to think about, a lot of those capabilities are baked into the platform now and kind of taken away from them as well. And then from the portal, the self-service perspective, being able to have these kind of reusable components and tools that they can use makes it easy to start consuming and doing these things within those teams. So these teams are moving from a project-based delivery model to more of a product-based delivery model, whether it's application teams, data teams, etc. They're basically a consumer of that platform. So we kind of talked a bit about people and process. So how does technology enable this? So these particular capabilities here, obviously I'm in a Microsoft space, but the same kind of concepts, there would be equally different kind of products and capabilities across different cloud providers as well. So depending on what you want to do, those kind of self-service capabilities are there. So Microsoft DevBox is one that I've been using. So I'm working with a customer at the moment. So they don't have very minimal stuff inside of Azure, large AWS shop, but they want to enhance the developer experience and the time taken to give a developer a new laptop, ship it out to the site. So there's a big offshore team that does this work. And it's going more than just VDI. So instead of just giving them a virtual desktop machine, a lot of them need the tools and developer tools and capabilities and data within that machine. So it's kind of enhancing that and making a pre-configured, packaged workstation that they can use that basically follows them everywhere. Second is the Azure Developer CLI. So this extends on the traditional CLI, but really gives you that kind of pathway from code to cloud to be able to quickly develop and deploy solutions within your inner loop, and then obviously moving into your outer loop as well. And then lastly, Azure Developer Environment. So these are pre-canned environments that you can just spin up on demand that recreate both the infrastructure and the application code and the whole solution as one go in an ephemeral or dev subscription or locally within your own kind of machine. So kind of working through those different capabilities gives us a lot of flexibility and being able to kind of unburden some of those things. So if we bring it all together, how does it kind of look? So we have the concept of a project. So as a developer or as a consumer of the platform, you can be in one or more projects. So there's a platform engineering team project that we have. Project 2 could be AI platform or an e-shop or an application. So the concept of these boundaries, and then within those boundaries, we set up the different capabilities. So from the dev box perspective, we have different SKUs and capabilities that we can make available. So different SKUs of VM sizes, RAM. So a lot of this stuff is kind of set from the baseline and then made available to the consumers as well. They can be self-hosted within your own environment or sit on its own dedicated network across different regions all over the world, join to Microsoft Entra or your domain, and have a lot of kind of security capabilities provided as well. On the right, we talk about the developer environment. So we have dev, test, and prod. They're all assigned to subscriptions. So a lot of the identities and the templates and the manifests, which are all defined in YAML, are created there. So then when you log into the portal, you can kind of target each of those different pieces and deployments into that environment without actually having to have owner or privileged identity to be able to do that, because it's leveraging the on behalf of your credentials that are defined there. So we can kind of create these different catalogs. From an architecture perspective, we have the client. So whatever client you want to use from an end user perspective, you can use Mac, you can use Windows, Linux, web portal, iPad, etc. DevBox leverages the hosted on behalf of model. So the actual machines that you're using are sitting within a Microsoft tenancy, and then they're kind of presented into your Azure tenancy as a network interface that you can control and update, but you're abstracting a lot of that kind of management away from what you're doing. So you have a lot of different capabilities and you can log into these machines. It doesn't have to be Windows, you can use WSL. So if you're a Linux developer and you like the command line, you're not forced to be using just a Microsoft machine. And then via network connectivity and a lot of other things that are in place, you have access to things on-prem, network, different clouds as well. From a persona perspective, so we talked a little bit about platform engineering. So they are the enabler. So they're the ones that are creating these scaffolding and guardrails that people would use. Project admins, they are more focused as an operator. So they are providing the different SKUs. They are onboarding people into their teams. They are customizing the tool sets and what they need to be able to provision as well. And then obviously the developer themselves, they are a consumer, so they have access to the portal. They can log in. They can create things that they need to. Lastly, so looking at the developer CLI, so from code to cloud. So what this does is makes it very easy to take an idea and a concept. What do I want to build today? Understand that there's different templates and catalogs of things that we can go through. And then how do I actually go and create that infrastructure? So with some simple commands, we can get up a list of pre-canned environments from everything from OpenAI, API management, app container environments. So you're basically limited to what you want to build. And that can either come from an external repository that is kind of curated by Microsoft in the community, or your own internal kind of capabilities within GitHub, etc. And then in the middle, we have a simple command, AZD up. So that allows you to deploy the infrastructure and the application in one go and build out that kind of self-contained environment. And then you can use other things to kind of monitor it, build pipelines. So a lot of those kind of capabilities are automatically there. Hard to read, but from the Azure developer environment, so again, we look on the left there from the platform engineers. They are the ones that are providing those different capabilities. and then set up the different environment mappings and subscription mappings to the users. So as a developer goes through their inner loop and outer loop from a development perspective, they can create these things locally within their environment, and then obviously promote them through dev, test, prod, etc., taking the kind of same concepts that they have there as well.